Welcome to the Why Factor, a chance to work out why we do what we do. BBC World Service podcasts are supported by advertising.
Thank you for downloading this edition of the Why Factor, the programme that finds out why we do the things we do. So Thomas is just revving up, getting his boat all ready to go. It looks, sounds a bit bizarre this, it looks long and low in the water, almost like an ironing board. It's flat and very, very low. It's white with blue and red stripes on it, and he has to lie flat on his stomach in the boat. He's got an orange helmet. He's got an orange helmet on, and there he goes, off down the lake. At some speed. That's 17-year-old Thomas Mantrip, and he needs all the speed he can get because this is his attempt to break the world water speed record for his class of boat. I've come to Coniston Records Week in the English Lake District, an annual event on this beautiful 8-kilometre-long lake where everything from jet skis to ocean-going powerboats are trying to hit speeds never reached before. It's a full-on celebration of speed. I'm Kaz Graham, and this is the Why Factor on the BBC World Service. And today, we're asking, why are we so taken with speed?
This is a hydroplane hull with a 125cc engine. We're here to do the world speed record for the class.
Thomas Mantrip, who just powered off down the lake, cuts a striking figure, clad from head to foot in bright orange safety gear, standing out against the cold grey morning and the muted greens and browns of the hills behind him. Before he slid into his boat, he told me he's hoping to hit around 137 kilometres per hour. That's more than 85 miles an hour.
Earlier we done 82, I think it was.
82 miles an hour?
Yeah, but we've now increased it to 84 miles an hour.
Could you describe your boat to me? Tell me all about it.
So the boat is made in Estonia and it's made from carbon fibre, fully composite carbon fibre, so extremely light and really strong at the same time, so it's ideal for what we need. I think it's about 3.5 metres, so it's not massive, but with a quite powerful engine on it gets quite lively sometimes, so you've got to be careful.
What do you mean by it gets quite lively?
Well, if you go quite fast, there's a lot of air getting trapped underneath the boat. Because of the style of the boat, it naturally traps lots of air underneath, which lifts it out of the water, which is good because you get less resistance. However, if you get too high out of the water, you have got a big chance to flip it, so you don't really want to do that because you can then get hurt.
Standing next to me is Jim Noon, who has been described to me as the fastest British man on water still alive.
That's correct, yeah.
I'm glad to say, Jim.
Yeah.
What is it about the speed when you're doing this kind of thing? Why do you want to be the fastest?
Well, nobody breaks a record by going down on half throttle. It's really all or nothing to break the record, and that's what becomes the challenge for every single driver that's out there today. Here, you get one hit. That's it. So you've basically got to go full out and to try and get the record.
So speed excites us in many different ways. I mean, firstly, just as a quality itself, we get the movement of visual cues whizzing past us.
Professor Brendan Walker from Middlesex University is a self-confessed thrill engineer who specialises in roller coaster rides. So he's thought long and hard about why we find speed so thrilling.
We're programmed to be excited by things that move, and also we feel the wind rushing through our hair, and all these things are stimulators. But the real great quality about speed that excites us is the change in speed, which is the acceleration, which creates a force that we feel on our body, which people call the G-force. You know, when you talk about roller coasters, people talk about the change in G-force. And if you were to blindfold somebody on a roller coaster and give them no other cues other than the acceleration forces that they're feeling on their bodies, that is, the changes in speed, then their physiology responds almost completely in step with the changes in those accelerations.
And what happens to the physiology? I mean, what happens to our bodies when we're experiencing that acceleration and that speed?
When we accelerate, our body's autonomic nervous system is fired up, our pupils become dilated, our heart starts to beat faster, our palms become a little bit sweatier, we may start breathing a little quicker. And all these things are actually preparing us for the flight or fight response. When the body's autonomic nervous system's fired up, we do get a massive release of adrenaline, which triggers these changes in physiological states.
Thomas, what is it about going extremely fast, being the fastest in the world that is important to you?
It's just great to be able to say, like, you've done such great achievement. This is not the only thing we do. We are powerboat racers, so the thing we do the most is to race, but a record is just a great thing to be able to have, and to say that you're the fastest, or you have gone the fastest in the world, that's quite a big achievement to be able to have.
My name is Alison Worley. I'm chairman of Coniston Record Week.
Alison, there are powerboats all around us. What is this all about? What do you do here?
We're assisting anybody to break a world or national water speed record. The event's been going since 1970, and because of the event that we've run over the years, the UK holds the most world water speed records. We have everything from large offshores doing over 100 mile an hour. We have a young gentleman, Thomas Mantrip, who's 17 years old, going in a lie-down hydro, which is quite a scary prospect, doing sort of 70, 80 miles an hour.
That's Thomas that we spoke to earlier. Why is being the fastest so important for the people who come here?
For some people, they love their powerboat racing, but the pinnacle of their year, the pinnacle of their life is holding a world or national record. A lot of them emulate their hero Donald Campbell, who was a very prolific land and water speed record breaker in the 1950s and 60s. Unfortunately, Donald lost his life on Coniston, and they want to emulate, they want to be on the same water as their hero.
He lost his life on this lake that we're at here while trying to break a world speed record.
Whilst trying to break his own world speed record on 300 miles an hour.
What is it, do you think, that makes people want to, put themselves at risk just to be the fastest?
It's something that they love to do. It's an achievement beyond anything else. They can say that they hold a world record in something that nobody else has got. So it is a great achievement way beyond anything that they can imagine.
Jim Noon is a bit of a legend here. He's held 8 world speed records on water, so he's just the man to ask, why risk your life by going so fast?
It's weird, really. All you're beating, really, is a number. To actually describe it to you and say, why do you do it? If you actually sat down and analysed it, you wouldn't. That would be the bottom line. But it's something that we do. It's a challenge. You want to be the fastest, and you want to be the fastest in the world. Since, unfortunately, Donald was killed on the lake, the record was upped in 1977 to 317. Since that time, there have been 2 serious attempts at the world water speed record, and they've both ended in fatalities. I think over the years, if you look back at the history of people who've held the absolute water speed record, it's about a 50% death rate, unfortunately. So water's dangerous stuff.
If there's a 50% chance that you might die, why would people go for that record? What goes on in the head?
When you do a record, the finishing at the end of it is 50% elation, 50% relief.
Well, a Formula 1 car today is really a plane upside down on wheels. It's extremely complex in terms of its mechanical aspects.
Perhaps the most celebrated global search for speed is the one that features in each year's Formula 1 race season. The French car manufacturer Renault has been racing on the Formula 1 circuit for more than 40 years. And the car for the 2019 season, which starts in Melbourne in March, is just being fine-tuned. Marcin Bukowski is the executive director of the Renault Formula 1 team.
First of all, what we're interested in is relative speed. We don't want to go as quickly as possible. We want to go quicker than our competitors. That's one thing. And then the other thing about a Formula 1 car is it's not about the speed you reach on a straight line. It's about the speed you reach around a lap of the circuit. So in terms of top speed of a Formula 1 car, we're talking about 360, 370 kilometers per hour on a circuit like Monza or Mexico City. I think on top of this, you would have a speed of 360, 370 on a straight line, but you can have a speed of 250 to 160 kilometers an hour in a corner. And this is the scary part, and this is the one that really, when you go and see a Formula One race, and it's great, I think, to really understand the speed at which these machines go. People go and stand next to a straight line and they say, yes, that's pretty quick. Then they stand next to a corner, and normally they don't say anything because they're speechless. The speed at which a Formula One car goes around a fast corner is absolutely incredible. We're talking about around 5 Gs in a fast corner. That's where the driver is feeling it the most, and in his neck usually. So drivers usually train their neck a lot to resist the G forces, but also the whole body. Your body weighs 5 times its weight, but in the lateral direction, not in the vertical direction. It's pretty unusual feeling, but they're training very hard to be able to cope with it.
So that's the engineering behind speed. But how do our brains react to it? Brendan Walker.
There are 2 cues that our brain gets when it's trying to determine how fast it's going. One is our mechanical kinesthetic sense, that is, all the body's organs and various vestibular systems which are giving us indicators of how fast we're going. So we can sense the forces, we can feel the wind against our skin, but also there's the visual kinesthetic sense. That is the information that is being received by our eyes as things whiz past us at speed. Now, if you can fool one or both of these various mechanisms, we can actually make the body feel that it is going at speed. And what I'm experimenting with is using a swing, a simple playground swing, where you have undulating physical forces acting on the body, which can give the sensation that you're actually having these changes in acceleration to the body. And if I can give visual cues that match those in absolute harmony, I can make you believe that those small acceleration forces are making you go faster and faster and faster until you're actually hurtling along at tremendous speeds. So it's all about visual illusion.
If you're an athlete and you do want to go faster and faster, training the mind is just as important as training the body. Australian sports psychologist Ruth Anderson was lead psychologist to the British cycling team at the 2016 Rio Olympics, where they won twice as many medals as any other nation, taking home 6 golds. Now, back in Australia, she's head of sports psychology for the Australian cycling team, and she spoke to me from Sydney on Skype.
People that want to push themselves to extreme limits generally want to go beyond what others previously done and surpass limits that have been put on them. So it takes a very high level of motivation and desire to want to exceed what's been done before. But also it takes quite a high level of psychological strength to be able to actually push yourself that far. That trying to aim for speed or trying to perform at such an extreme level requires a very high tolerance of anxiety, and a very strong control of fear. So people that put themselves in situations where they're participating in extreme sports or doing an extreme activity generally are able to break through the barrier of fear and tolerate quite a high level of anxiety to try and achieve something that's not been done before.
Back in the English Lake District, while Thomas makes final preparations for his world speedboat record run, Jim Noon tells me about the records he's broken.
I think over the years I've held 8 world records in various classes. The quickest one is the inboard hydroplane. So this is a large boat, approximately 1.2 tonnes. We built it and we finally got a speed of 154.7 miles an hour.
Jim, have you had any near misses?
Yes, I had a couple of accidents. One, actually, I think the worst one I had was attempting a record in 1991. The boat got up to about 110 plus. Without the safety cells that we have now, a lot of the boats are over 100 miles an hour. You're strapped into the boat. I was in an open cockpit, hit some wind. It was the last run of the day, but it always is the last run of the day. I risked it. I felt the boat lift. I thought, well, if you back off, you don't get a record. So I continued to press on the throttle, and the boat took off and went about 60 foot in the air, and that put me for a week or so in Lancaster Royal Infirmary. But luckily the boat ended up somersaulting 5 times down the lake, and I ended up somersaulting behind it with dislocated shoulders and back injuries. But luckily, we lived to fight another day on that one.
It's just a gamble, isn't it? How far you put your foot on that accelerator.
It is a gamble. Anyone, you could do it. I could put you in a boat. If you didn't want it and you just put your foot down, the chances are you might break a record. However, there's also a chance that you wouldn't know that if anything was going to go wrong, you wouldn't back off and it could end up in a nasty accident.
I don't think we'll try.
OK, fair enough.
In most situations, people won't necessarily know that they actually have the capacity to be able to break a world record, win an Olympic gold, be the fastest in the world. But what they do know is where they are now and what they have the capacity to be able to do, and also identify the gaps for where they need to win. Most elite athletes are really good at setting themselves high targets, but are really disciplined in the actions that they require to be able to meet those targets. But the difference between those that win medals, those that are able to break world records, is that those athletes are able to actually take control of their psychological state when it counts. For most of us, once we would be approaching a high speed, our emotional response would trigger a defensive mechanism where we just want to feel safe. So we'll stop. Individuals that can push past, at high speed or participate in extreme sports can push through that barrier and take away the limits and see what they can achieve.
And that's precisely what Formula One drivers have to do. Ignore the voice of reason that would have most of us stamping on the brake pedal.
They're born racers, they're born competitors. There's also a little bit of what a normal person could call craziness, is going at these speeds around the circuit. It doesn't seem to be natural or reasonable. It's fair to say that the cars today are a lot safer than they were 40, 50 years ago, where, as I said, 2-3 drivers would die every year during the Formula One season. Thankfully, it's not the case anymore. We do have the odd accident, but it's very rare. But still, it remains a dangerous sport. It remains a sport where it's the speeds and the energies deployed are such that it's very, very easy for a driver to get hurt. So it takes this little bit of courage / craziness sometimes to push a machine to its very limits, to be as competitive and as fast as possible, just before the point of no return where you're going to crash and potentially hurt yourself. Drivers are gladiators, if you want. They get into the car, there's a scenery on top of it, they put the helmet, they slide into this car, which is very, very tight, and almost like they form part of the car. They tighten their seatbelts, and it's almost like the car and the driver, it becomes one, and they come out on the circuit at very, very high speeds, and you know that there's an element that they could get hurt, possibly, and I think that attracts people as well.
People who thrive on speed, thrive on high level of challenge, and also have the capacity to be able to match that and the skills, they'll always be seeking to try and improve. In an Olympic context, once an athlete wins a gold medal, they're setting their next goal for how they can back up their success or how they can take that forward and break a world record. People who are generally always pushing the boundaries and trying to kind of exceed their prior standards and always be the best they can be, once they reach it, they're not fully satisfied and they'll want to take the next step to see how they can push themselves forward.
Marcin Budkowski from the Renault Formula One team.
You have all these departments, all these people, all these engineers working on gaining a few hundreds, a few thousands of seconds by developing small areas of the car, developing shape, an aerodynamic shape, developing the characteristic of a suspension, saving a little bit of weight on a part, and then suddenly it all comes together. And all these hundreds and thousands of seconds add up to make a car that is a bit quicker. So you save a bit here, you save a bit there, you improve a bit there, and then it all comes together. And actually, as we speak, today we're starting assembling the car that's going to compete this year. And we've almost for 9 months now, we've been working on this car. Hundreds of people have been thinking, designing, trying building all these parts, and they all come together now. And that machine that's going to be built in the next couple of weeks is going to be the one that hopefully will add all these small gains and make it a quick car.
But what motivates people like Formula One or speedboat drivers to stretch themselves to the limits of what might be dangerous? Do we like scaring ourselves? Brendan Walker.
It's not because we're scared. That isn't the thing that attracts us to speed. It's the novelty of speed. In fact, the risk associated with going at high speeds is something that most people could actually do without. It's the novelty that we really crave. And as animals, we've been programmed that the sensation of speed, which is closely linked possibly to us having evolved to be able to evade danger or to capture prey, both of which were rewarded. The reward mechanisms give this massive boost of dopamine, which was related to pleasure, and adrenaline. So we get this massive euphoric rush, this thrill. And so in reverse, if we can actually go at speed, we actually start to sense a real feeling of thrill. And people say that they've never felt so alive after going at tremendous speeds.
And that was exactly how Thomas seemed when he completed his run. And here Thomas comes. He's just done his second run along the lake. He has a paddle, so he's just paddling the boat back into the shore now.
His first run was 85.152.
He's with his dad and a group of guys. They're all knee-deep in the water, pulling the boat out now.
Thomas, Alistair's been putting bits of paper in front of me which tells me that Bob Wartinger's world record is 84.32. Your speed south was 85.152, returned at 85.412. New world and natural record at 85.28, a comprehensive demolition of the existing records. Well done.
Congratulations!
Thank you.
That's fantastic, Thomas. How does it feel? You are the world record holder.
Yeah, it's great. We've been trying so hard all week to try and get it, and now we've done it, and it's great. So this is my first world record.
What was it like when you were doing that run?
Oh, it felt amazing. It's the quickest we've gone all week, and you could feel the boat was just flying on the water, so it's a great feeling. All year we've been testing and making the boat better, and to get it now, it's great.
So now you go and celebrate, do you?
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm Kaz Graham, and you've been listening to The Y Factor on the BBC World Service. If you've enjoyed this programme, visit our website for other episodes about the appeal of extreme sports and why some people love plane, train and bird spotting. But for me, it's back to the lake to join the celebrations.
Well done, son.
Are you the proud mum?
I am.
Oh, my goodness.
I know, I could cry.
I'm not surprised. What's it like when he's powering along that lake on that tiny little flimsy boat?
It's strange because you can't see him. You've got so many emotions. And, well, I'm just...
And you're welling up.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised. Family effort, well done.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Linda.
And I'm Mercy.
And we're the presenters of a new podcast from the BBC World Service called
Parentland. I'm a mum of two and a portrait and documentary photographer.
And I'm also a mum of two and a science journalist. Parentland is a place you can come if you're interested in kids, why they do the things they do, and how to make them do what you want them to do.
So if you have any burning questions about raising a child,
whether it's babies, toddlers, kids, teenagers,
Parentland is the place to be.
We're very much focused on evidence, so we're going to be speaking to scientists, researchers, doctors.
Yeah, and this is a really global podcast, so we want to have questions from all over the world. It doesn't matter where you're from, what your culture has to say about it, we'll try as much as possible to tackle it.
Yeah, because I think a lot of the issues parents face are global issues. They're universal issues, and so wherever you are, probably someone else has the same question.
Could be potty training.
How do I get my kid to sleep through the night?
How to help your child do better at school. Anything that has to do with raising a child.
Parentland's launching on February the 25th, but we want your questions now.
So any questions you have about parenting, please send them to our email,
parentland@bbc.com.
That's parentland, all one word, @bbc.com.